Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna. In today's video, we're going to do some ink swatches and writing sample of two very interesting inks. They're very similar to each other. I have Sailor Ink Studio 162 and I also have Vinta Lucia. So these are very interesting, very nice inks. And you're going to see how it looks like later on when I swatch them. So I already have my fountain pens ready. They're already inked up with those inks. And my glass pen. And so let's get this started. I have this notebook here. And I decided to completely devote this notebook only for ink swatches and writing samples so that it would be easier to reference these inks later on. And this is called Maruman Septcouleur. If you look here in the back, it says Maruman and it says made in Japan. So I've had this notebook before and I really like it. It's very friendly paper for fountain pen. And it's very nice, very smooth. And this is what I'm going to use for the swatch today. Alrighty, so the first one that I am going to swatch is the Sailor Ink Studio 162. And let me just zoom in quick so that it will be easier for you guys to see how this looks like. I do have my watercolor brush and I'm going to dip it in here and you'll see how this looks like in a moment. Okay, Sailor inks are very interesting inks because they have some very interesting properties. Some of them are multi-shading and they're very pretty. So this is how it looks like. This looks like a gorgeous teal color. Okay, as you can see, it's very liquidy here. And later on we shall see how this looks like when it is dry. Okay, let me zoom in more so you can see the swatch clearly. It is wet and later on we will go back to it so we will see how this looks like when it's dry. Alright, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my dip pen and dip it in here and we shall see how this writes using the glass pen. But I'm also gonna provide you another writing sample using a fountain pen inked up with the same ink so you can see how it looks like when you're using a fountain pen. So sometimes the ink looks differently on paper depending on what kind of pen you use. So this is Sailor Ink Studio. I'm gonna write the name here. Sailor Ink Studio, and this is 162. And as you can see, the ink is very thick on the paper. It's just because it's very difficult to control the ink flow on this glass pen. But you shall see how this looks like later on when it's dry. And it looks like a pastel, kind of like teal color. It's very pretty. But, you know, sometimes it's difficult to capture how it will look like on paper using a fountain pen just because the ink it lays differently using a glass pen. So the glass pen that I'm using is Molshine. And this glass pen I got from Amazon. And this is, I think, about maybe $7-8 more or less. But this is what I use for testing, you know, my inks, because it allows you to just clean the pen and dip it in water, and it's very easy to test multiple inks. So this is how it looks like on paper using a glass pen. Let me zoom out and let's see how the swatch looks like. Okay, so the swatch is not dry yet, but you can see a very interesting color come out of this. I do see what looks like a purple and what looks like a pink color, and this looks like a pale teal, pastel teal, kind of like a greenish teal. It's hard for me to describe. I'm not very good at describing colors, but it is really very pretty. So this is multi-shading ink and you have the duochrome in there, so very pretty. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fountain pen, and this is Himalaya version 1 from Fountain Pen Revolution, and I'm going to provide you another writing sample so you will see how this looks like using a fountain pen. So I've already inked up this fountain pen with the same ink. And let me just provide you a writing sample of this one. I am using a fine nib. I like this one because the feed is ebonite and the ink flow is really good and very juicy. So you would probably see that it lays the ink a little bit thick on the paper, but you shall see what I'm talking about. Alrighty, so let's do a writing sample here. Okay. I apologize if you hear some noise in the background. It's just my dog. I gave him some peanut butter so he won't bother me. Okay. So as you can see, it's very pretty. Okay. Alright, so sometimes you forget you're awesome, so this is your reminder. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves that. Let me zoom out, and so let's see how this looks like. Alrighty, so now you have at least an idea how it looks like on paper using a fountain pen, and this is fine nib, but as you can see, it's very pretty here on paper. Okay, so this is the one that I wrote using the glass pen, and it looks pale in comparison to this one that I wrote using the fountain pen, just because, you know, using the fountain pen you have a more consistent ink flow, and the ink flow in this one is very nice. It's very juicy, it's very consistent. I love it. Alrighty, so let's take a look at this one again. So there you have it. That's how it looks like using both the glass pen and the fountain pen. Alright, so if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions about the ink and what kind of ink that you wanted me to test, let me just know. Alright, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the other ink and this, and we'll just do like a comparison of this one. Alright, so this is Vinta Lucia, and this is made in the Philippines, and this is also very interesting. I love this ink, and you can see that it's very similar. Let me dip another brush in here, and then let's do a swatch, and we'll just compare it to each other. Okay, alrighty. Oops, let me zoom this in quick so you can see that clearly as well. Dip it in here one more time. Okay, so this Vinta ink is actually made in the Philippines, and they are known to make really nice inks as well. This one is something that I really love. Okay. Alrighty, so as you can see, that is kind of how it looks like. And let me just do this here. Alrighty. Alright, so this is the Vinta Lucia, and I'm gonna take my same glass pen that I used, and I'm gonna do, maybe wipe this and clean this up so that it will not have any ink residue from the other ink. And so this is now clean. Gonna dip this in here and see how this one looks on paper. So I think this one is a little bit darker and a little bit more blue compared to the other one. The other one is, I think, more green. Okay, so this is Vinta. Let me just write it down here. Okay, this is Vinta Lucia. And sometimes it's also called deep water blue. Okay, so that's how it looks like. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do some loops, some 8 figures, some vertical lines, horizontal. Okay. Okay, and this is also written using the Molshine glass pen. Alrighty. Okay. So let me zoom out and see how that looks like. Okay. Alright, let me see this. Alright, so as you can see, they're similar to each other. If you take a look at this Molshine glass pen that I wrote here using the Vinta Lucia, it's not any different from how this Molshine glass pen writing looks like. They are very similar. Okay, if you take a look at here, take a look here, they're very similar to each other. However, the swatch in here looks a little bit different. Like I said, it looks more blue, okay, and this one looks more kind of like green. Okay, but on paper, using a fountain pen, it's very difficult to actually see the difference. So the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna write the same thing using my platinum. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called Meteor. I got this one from AliExpress, and as you can see, it has a very nice nib. It has that star in there, and you have the letter P. This is in a fine nib, so you will see that the ink will be very, very thin, okay, on this paper. Alright, I'm gonna write the same thing. Let me zoom in so you can see clearly. Let me see that. Alrighty. Zoom this in. I'm gonna write the same thing. Okay. So you will have like a good comparison between these two. So as you can see, the ink is very thin on the paper. But I love this fountain pen for the price. I think I got this for maybe $5. And it also already included a converter. But, you know, for just a regular, like everyday fountain pen, this does not disappoint. Okay? And it's very cheap, but it's very reliable. This platinum really is reliable. I have not seen this clog up or have a hard time starting, but the ink is a little bit dry on this just because, you know, it's the ink flow, I think, is very thin in here because it's fine, you know, like Japanese nibs and fountain pens, they're different because what looks like a fine is an extra fine, you know, in Japanese fountain pens. Okay, I'm almost done here. Alrighty, so I wrote exactly the same thing, and as you can see, it's just a little bit thinner. The ink is thin because the nib is fine. Let us zoom out and see how this one looks like. So if you are comparing these two, you have the Sailor 162 and you have the Vinta Lucia Vinta Lucia ink. Both of these inks are very pretty and both perform really well. So it's just a matter of preference, which one you like better. Personally, I prefer the Vinta Lucia because, I don't know, I just love the color of this ink. So let's zoom in again. This is how the swatch looks like. Okay, and this is how it looks like on the paper using a glass pen. This is a very nice shading ink. I had it in my other fountain pens, and if you have this on like a flex fountain pen, it demonstrates a very interesting, you know, shading in there. So this is really, really pretty. So let me know what you guys think of these two inks. Which one do you prefer? And if you are on the fence, and if you are considering buying one of these now, at least you know how it looks like on paper. I hope you find this useful. And again, if you haven't liked this video, or if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And if you have other comments suggestions, questions, just feel free to drop them down in the comment section below. And I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!